Thank you very much. I am thrilled and humbled to be standing up here before you this evening. It's quite overwhelming, actually. And I, again, appreciate your confidence in me. And I want to say thank you to all of the people out there who have been my mentors in the past. I'm going to call you out by name in a few minutes. I also want to congratulate our new High Council. We have an excellent team, and we are very much looking forward to serving over the next couple of years. If you've been to Sigma Nu meetings over the last 4, 5, 6 years, you may have heard, and I'm sure you've heard, mention of history, traditions, and heroes, and some of the heroes within Sigma Nu. And I'd like to start my remarks this evening by mentioning some of the individuals who are here, who are influencers or heroes to me, who have played a part in my Sigma Nu life. I had a collegiate Sigma Nu brother come up to me yesterday afternoon, and he asked me to tell him my Sigma Nu story. And I said, "How much time do you have?" And I told him a quick story about some of my Sigma Nu influencers, who I owe a great debt of gratitude to, since my life was shaped by them and many others, some in this room tonight. The first ones that come to mind are the guys in my chapter at Beta Theta in Auburn. I was fortunate enough to have been invited to join Sigma Nu over 43 years ago. And some of my lifelong friends that I have made over the years are the guys that I lived with in the fraternity house at 715 West Magnolia in Auburn, Alabama. Older classmen who took me under their wing, the younger guys that we got to know, and all of the other guys. We had about 110 guys on average, and we were very close. And I'm still in touch, as many of you are, with those guys today, those close friends. Those were life-changing experiences, all very strong and all lasting. And when someone asks me about college, the first thing I think of is my time in the Sigma Nu house. I don't think about sitting in class. I don't think about going to football games. I think about my life in the fraternity at 715 West Magnolia. And I'm assuming many of you do the same thing as well with your experience. There are a few Beta Theta brothers here this evening, including a couple from my era who came out here to San Diego, Gene McKnight and Mason Cross. I want to thank you very much for being here. And of course, my fraternity brother, Maury Gaston, here, who serves on the High Council with us, and our collegiate representatives that are here. I want to mention individuals who got me involved in Sigma Nu in the first place at the national level. Bud Ritchie, who many of you know, who is not here with us at this grand chapter, was our collegiate consultant and came to Auburn. And I met Bud around 1974. And Bud encouraged me to consider applying for a job as a consultant. And I said, "Really?" And he convinced me that I should do that. And I was going to College of Chapters that year. And so I interviewed there when I was at headquarters. And they ended up interviewing me and hiring me. And it was one of the best decisions I ever made. I was hired by Dr. Bill Amiot, who you heard Brother Bob McCulley mention today in the Chapter Eternal report. And I later served under Executive Director Mo Littlefield, who many of you also know. All of us consultants, and there were 6 of us in those days, we learned much from both of those men. Another of my Sigma Nu mentors and heroes is here this evening, and he's also a hero to many others in Sigma Nu. I first met him in the spring of 1976, right before I was to go on the road with the other consultants on the staff. And this individual had been on the consulting staff a few years before me, and he was so good at his job that our executive director asked him to come and return to Lexington for a week to train us 7 young, eager pups and teach us the ropes. We thought we knew a lot, but we actually knew very little. But he showed us what it was like to be a good Sigma Nu consultant. He had his own career. He was actually working in the Bay Area, but he flew all the way back to Virginia and took time out of his life to return and give back. He shared with us his knowledge and experience, and he helped train us to be better consultants, better people, and better Sigma News. And he did, and we were the better for it. That man, of course, if you haven't guessed, is our good friend and grand historian, Bob McCulley. So thank you, Bob. And who, some 40 years later, is still unselfishly giving of his time and mentoring others and being a great example to all of us. I also want to mention and thank past Regent Joe Gilman, who about 11 or 12 years ago called and invited me to join him for breakfast in Atlanta with one of my old consulting buddies who was in town from 1976. And at that meeting, Joe began what I'll call working on me to get me, and I know he's done it with others here too, but Joe began recruiting me to get me back involved at the national level, and at his urging, I did so. And so thank you, Joe. There were many others who were impactful that I'd be remiss if I didn't mention, and many of you former staff guys were also impacted by these Sigma Nu stalwarts. These were the men who were serving on the High Council when I was on the staff and who were volunteering their time to make our fraternity better. They were kind, they were patient, and they were eager to share their knowledge and wisdom with us. They told great stories, and they had a treasure trove of experiences that they graciously passed along to us. And I think back very fondly of them and appreciate what they taught us and the influence that they had on us young staff guys. They were the regents and the vice regents and the grand councilmen at the time, and many of you who are about my age or older probably remember these gentlemen as well. People like Virgil Duffy from South Carolina, Jerry Sherritt from Utah State, Bob Marchman from Emory, John Thorin from Arizona State, and Bob Crustle from Michigan State, and Randy Capps from Western Kentucky, and of course the wonderful, one-of-a-kind Ted Palmer, who was not only the longest-serving Grand Treasurer in the fraternity's history, but also is known as the last living person who had shaken the hand of one of our founders. Sadly, all but a few of these men have passed on to the chapter eternal, and quite frankly, I miss them. They set a good example. They gave of their time and knowledge and energy in order to make the fraternity that they all loved a better organization. And one of the reasons that I feel good about volunteering is that I feel that what these guys did for me and others at that time, and my peers, and all the Sigma Nus from my era that they served, that I now have an opportunity, as well as an obligation, to in some small way do the same thing and try to give back. I owe them a debt of gratitude, and I appreciate the influence that all of those gentlemen had on my life and the lives of so many others Sigma Nus. And I know many of the alumni volunteers here feel the same way, that you're giving back because someone gave to you. And as was mentioned during our opening session, we are very fortunate to have with us this week 8 past regents. That's pretty remarkable. And I think it shows, especially the young collegians, that what the lifelong commitment to Sigma Nu is and their loyalty and dedication. And as Neil said, this fraternity is for life, and these guys are proving it. I hope by seeing these 8 dedicated past regents here, that you collegians in particular will notice and will emulate this over your lifetime. And in the next 10, 20, 40 or more years from now, that you'll be the ones filling these leadership roles. And like these men and many other volunteers have done, you'll be still actively involved with Sigma Nu in some capacity. I want to again recognize these 8 past regents and have you thank them for their lifelong and ongoing services to Sigma Nu. I'd like to recognize Dave Ruig, E.G. White, Mike Long, Howard Pickett, Don Dinsborn, Joe Gilman, Robert Durham, Charlie Idle, and now Joe Francis. Let's show them our appreciation and thank them. Thank you. Next, on a more personal level, I want to thank some very special people here who are here tonight and introduce them to you. I am blessed, in fact, I'm very blessed to have a wonderful family, and they're all here this evening. My wife and 3 sons, who you saw earlier, are here with me, and I couldn't do what I do for Sigma Nu without their love and support. I'd like to introduce them to you. First, my oldest son, Jay. If you guys can stand up, everybody can see you. Jay is a graduate at the University of Texas, where he was a member of Sigma Alpha Epsilon, and he's currently living and working in Stuttgart, Germany, and he came in last night to join us. Next, Fraser, who's an Auburn graduate and is a Sigma Nu, Beta Theta number 2709. Fraser has spent 2 years working in the Asia-Pacific area, and he's currently in training in Orlando, Florida, after which he will be moving back to East Asia in early 2017. And Wynn, my youngest, who is also a proud Sigma Nu. He's Beta Theta 2832. Wynn is living in Atlanta and working in Atlanta. And I want to introduce you to my wife, Jan. She's an Alpha Delta Pi and a graduate of the University of Georgia. And last month, we celebrated our 30th wedding anniversary. Jan's a great mom to our boys, always enjoys volunteering and giving back to the community, including being an active volunteer in a number of groups within our church and with the Ronald McDonald House in Atlanta, which is, of course, the 80 Pi's national charity. And I so much appreciate her support, as well as that of Jay Fraser and Wynn, and their backing and encouragement to me over all these years with Sigma Nu. So thank you all so much. We've all heard this week about our accomplishments and achievements over the last few bienniums, and we rightly have been celebrating those excellent results and have been directly attributable to these efforts by the regents who led those high council and the men who sat on the high council during these past 6 to 8 years. And would like again to thank the ones that preceded me and Joe, or Don Dinsborn, Jay Pitts, Joe Gilman, Robert Durham, and Charlie Idle. We've been on a good path. Our successes over these years have been due to a lot of different factors, but one important one is that we set a strategic course, and we have a set of specific, measurable objectives that were then executed in an excellent fashion by our talented headquarters staff. We do review our strategic plan regularly to see if any course corrections are needed. And I want to acknowledge past Regent Howard Pickett for starting this process some 16 years ago. It's an outstanding strategic planning process, and Howard, it's working well, and thank you for starting that. By design, we have diligently stayed on course, and my plan for the next biennium is to keep on that course that's allowed us to get to where we are today. We've been sailing along the chartered course, accomplishing our strategic objectives, and we plan to maintain that course. And we plan to continue sailing due north, as Joe Francis set us out on in 2014 in Nashville. This plan had its initial inception back in the summer of 2007 at the College of Chapters in Lexington, when Robert Durham and Joe Francis and I took a long walk together all around the campus of Washington Lee and VMI, and we discussed our vision of making the fraternity stronger at the local chapter level, including chapter strength, improved operational efficiencies, and financial excellence. Chapter strength at that time was below 50 men per chapter, and today, as you saw in the State of the Fraternity report, it's over 75 per chapter, way beyond our expectations. But by developing resources like Task Force Hopkins, the Alumni Advisory Boards, and improved operations at the chapter level, that was achieved. We're going to be having our 3-day High Council Strategic Planning Retreat later this summer, like we do every 2 years after Grand Chapter. We're going to look at our course and see if we need to make any course corrections. And then we'll lay out our strategic objectives and our imperatives for the coming 2 years. This has worked extremely well, as I think the results show. This success is not luck. It's due to strong planning and execution. We will stay on the path of achieving excellent results, and will strive to continue the plan set in place. The course that we set out on several bienniums ago has been a good one. I and the rest of the High Council are looking forward to working with you and for you. We have an outstanding High Council team led by some seasoned veterans. I think if you add up the years of experience on the High Council that the 7 alumni here on the stage have, it'd be a cumulative about 28 years of service on the High Council between us. And I want to welcome Carter Hutchins to the High Council, who has a wealth of experience that we plan to tap, and we look forward to having him on the High Council team. We've got a lot to do, but we have an excellent team, and I know that they join me in saying we look forward to the challenge. And I know we've said this many times before, but I want to take time to recognize Brad Beecham and his outstanding staff team, and I want to thank them. As a former staff member, in fact, 40 years ago this summer, I was on the staff putting on the Grand Chapter in Nashville, Tennessee, and I can tell you that we wouldn't hold a candle to what these guys do. They are an amazing group. You heard Judd Horace from the NIC and Kevin O'Neill the other day say in their remarks on Thursday what an outstanding team we have. And they get to see and work with executives from other men's fraternities. There are some other fine men and excellent operators out there in other organizations, but I can say with no hesitancy at all, and I say it often, that from top to bottom, we have the best executive staff in the fraternity world. And you should be proud, very proud, as I and the rest of the High Council are, that we have such an excellent staff team doing what we call the heavy lifting and performing at such a high level for our fraternity. They're an outstanding resource who efficiently run the fraternity's operations, and we are fortunate to have them. You hear excellence referred to a lot. In past Regent Durham's charge that we have an obligation to excellence, and you'll hear variations on that theme of continued excellence over the next 2 years. The great All-Pro NFL quarterback Bart Starr, who played for the legendary coach Vince Lombardi, has a favorite quote of Lombardi's that was supposedly said in Lombardi's first team meeting with the Packers. Gentlemen, we are going to relentlessly chase perfection, knowing full well we will not catch it, because nothing is perfect. But we are going to relentlessly chase it because in the process we will catch excellence. I believe that quote sums up what we should try to do each day. Coach Lombardi set the tone, and the men on his team met the challenge. And you have met the challenge. The bar was set high, and many of you have touched excellence in a number of areas. Look at those 11 chapters who have achieved Rock Chapter status. That is not an easy task. In fact, it's darn hard to do. And it's almost as hard to continue to do it every year. But several of these chapters have multiple Rock awards. They continue to chase perfection, and they catch excellence. Also, I am very pleased, and you've heard this earlier as well, to mention that for the first time in our history, our 11,000 undergraduate brothers scattered coast to coast on 165 different chapters managed a cumulative GPA of 3.0 this last year. That is quite remarkable, and congratulations to you guys. I want to encourage you and your chapters when you return home to chase perfection. Set the bar high, achieve those goals. It can be done, and you can do it. We've achieved financial improvement and security that we have been working hard to accomplish, and now have the financial foundation to do even greater things. And I want to recognize Brother Tim Huffmeyer, our Grand Treasurer, and Nick Murphy, our fraternity's Chief Financial Officer, for their leadership in stewarding our financial resources and getting us to this point. Okay, where have we been and where are we going? As I mentioned, I would like to keep on course with continued chapter strength, financial excellence, and attention towards scholarship, leadership development through our LEAD and other programming. In addition, there is opportunity to have increased alumni engagement and involvement. I want to have not quite a cradle-to-grave approach, but close. Let's call it a candidate-to-grave approach. When you become a Sigma Nu, as we mentioned, you become one for life. As Neil mentioned, He is a Sigma Nu. And that doesn't stop when you graduate. The fraternity is committed to you, and likewise, you to the fraternity. You have a lifelong obligation, and you also have a lifelong opportunity to give back. I want you to take a look at these portraits over here on the wall of these three young men. Those, of course, are our founders. Those were the three original Sigma Nus. Those are Alpha 1, Alpha 2, and Alpha 3. They were the original links of our chain. If you look at this chain here, represents those three gentlemen on the wall. There are three individual links here. They're strong, but they're linked together. Every Sigma Nu in this room has a badge number or a PIN number. Some call it a bond number. Everyone is individual and everyone is different. There are no two alike. Our chain runs long and deep. It started out with link 1, link 2, link 3. We now have initiated over 235,000 links in that chain going back to 1869. Each of us is an individual link in that chain. I am Beta Theta 1591 link, if you will. All of our Beta Thetas from 3,000 pin numbered back to number 1 at Beta Theta, and that number 1 at Beta Theta, you can trace that link back to the chapter that started us. So all of the 235,000 individual links form one giant chain that goes right back to those three guys there. We are part of one big organization. And again, we have a lifelong obligation and we have lifetime opportunity. We're going to have increased opportunities to give back, which I'm going to talk about in a few minutes. I want to announce at this time that we are going to have several appointments. We're going to have some opportunities to serve on task forces. We have 4 individuals I want to point out that are going to be serving in this upcoming biennium. I'm happy to say that Matt Tudor from Eastern Kentucky and a former collegiate Grand Councilman has agreed to continue on as Grand Marshal. Tom Bymark from the University of Minnesota, also a former collegiate Grand Councilman, is going to be serving this biennium as Grand Sentinel. James Doty from Phi Chapter at LSU, who was also a Grand Councilman several years ago, and unfortunately can't be with us at this biennium. He has just taken over as pastor of a church in Louisiana, but has agreed to stay on as a Grand Chaplain. And these 3 young men have been involved in the fraternity back from their college years. They are staying involved in the fraternity, and they are some of our young leaders that we are continuing to keep involved, and we appreciate their service. And also, I want to announce that Brother Bob McCulley from San Diego State has agreed to continue on as our esteemed Grand Historian. So I would like you to thank these brothers for their service, and I thank them. I mentioned opportunities. We have many alumni out there who would like to get involved in the fraternity, but they don't know how. They either haven't been asked, or we haven't asked them the right way, or they don't know how to get in touch with them. There are lots of ways to give back, and one of the things that we are going to try to do is, of those 135,000 living alums, we're going to try to match up some of our vast needs with those who are willing to serve. We're going to put on a recruiting effort to go out and recruit and attract alums that can serve not only in volunteer positions on such as the alumni boards, as mentors. We've just completed a test program for mentoring that's worked out well. We're going to be evaluating those results and rolling it out nationwide. We have opportunities for involvement with the foundation. That could be everything from, as Neil mentioned, purchasing a brick for the walkway to serving as a volunteer with the foundation, making fundraising calls. We have city alumni clubs in a lot of locations. We have other groups that have been formed, like the Riley Society, which was formed at the impetus of some of our former collegiate Grand Councilmen. You can go on the website and see how to be involved in that group. We have former staff members, myself being one. We have a reunion at least every 5 years. That's an untapped resource in my book. We have the Alpha affiliates. As Joe mentioned, he got involved and has stayed involved because one of the impetuses there was through his affiliation with Alpha, and that is another untapped group. We have the opportunity to do career counseling, professional mentoring, advising chapter members who are going into certain professions. There are job and career advice opportunities. I'd like to set up a network of professionals in the search and human resources field that can match up potential opportunities with Sigma Nus who are either graduating or are out there working already and might want to make a job change. There are lots of opportunities to get involved. You may not have a lot of money that you can donate to the foundation, but there are a lot of volunteer opportunities where you can donate your time. You may not have a lot of time that you can donate, but you may have the financial resources that you can donate. And we're going to do a better job of getting the word out, communicating with our alumni, and giving them opportunities up and down the board, financially as well as time, to volunteer with us. We're in our 147th year, our sesquicentennial. It's just around the corner. And there will be some exciting things happening that you'll be hearing more about. We have a 150th anniversary committee that has been formed and will be rolling out more details later. But here are a few of the items that we've been discussing and going to be exploring that will include a series of articles that will be written by Grand Historian McCulley and will celebrate each one of our founders. As you heard from Foundation President Al Worcester, we'll have the special commemorative engraved brick program where you can purchase a brick that will be placed in a special section on a walkway at headquarters. We have a plan to have regional celebrations in conjunction with the 150th anniversary activities, and we're going to have a traveling historical roadshow exhibit that will go out. We're also going to have commemorative items for sale that mark our 150th anniversary. And all of these details are not yet in place, but we'll be sharing more of those specifics in the near future. We're also going to continue to lead in the interfraternity world. We believe in what we stand for. Our mission statement says we develop ethical leaders. So we plan to stand for what we believe in. We're 147 years old. If you look on a tombstone or on birth records, there's a start date and there's an end date. A person was born in this year and they died in this year. And there's a dash in the middle. So a person was born in 1 year, there's a dash, and they died in the second year. That also goes for organizations. That dash represents what you did or what that organization did during the time between they were born and they died. As we stand here in our 147th year, and we can see the 150th anniversary just a few short years ahead, what are we doing now that will ensure our dash continues to be a successful one, and that it will continue into and beyond our 150th? What are you doing? What are your chapters doing? We must do all that we can to do to honor the memory of our three founders. They're our original links, as well as the 235,000 links that have become knights since then. I think if our founders were here this evening, that they would be absolutely stunned to find out several things. Number one, that what they started there on that parade ground in the fall of 1868, when they founded the fraternity and they clasped their hands on the Bible, I think they would be stunned to see that we are coast to coast, United States, Canada, we have 235,000 initiates, and we've grown to where we are today. But I think beyond being stunned, I think they would be incredibly pleased to know that we are still teaching and espousing those same principles that they were founded on, and that we are developing ethical leaders here some 147 years after we were founded. Let me say that we are now, we always have been, and we will always continue to be the Legion of Honor. And yes, we will continue to proudly and unapologetically continue to develop ethical leaders, something that we have been doing successfully since 1869. And in closing, let me say that we must all commit ourselves to excelling in all of our efforts as we quickly move towards our 150th anniversary. And then, way beyond 2019 into the future. If we do that, as we must, we will remain linked to our past and committed to our future. Thank you very much, and we do need to commit ourselves to excelling as we approach our 150th. May God continue to bless America and Sigma Nu fraternity. Thank you.